Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as it is looking stunning once again with very warm and very dry conditions to avail. The only caveats with that perhaps is a little bit of rain in Scotland at times, with some thicker cloud, and perhaps some briefly cooler conditions down eastern areas, perhaps on Monday and Tuesday as we see a bit of an easterly wind, but it still is fine and sunny, even if those temperatures may dip a little bit there. As we head into the longer range, it's looking still pretty stunning as we head into early June from the GFS, ECMWF and the ensembles. There are still hints perhaps into the first full week of June we could see easterly winds develop, or northeasterly winds, briefly cooler air masses coming round the high pressure. No major pattern change, but it could stop and prevent those temperatures from getting much above sort of the 20-degree point, unfortunately. But we still have got a lot of uncertainty within that, but the next 7 days the upper air temperatures will be above average, so we are looking low 20s, maybe mid 20s at times. So any perhaps cooler conditions apart from the east, maybe on Monday and Tuesday, we're not thinking anything cool perhaps for another week or so at least, and even then we've got a lot of uncertainty in the longer range, and still precipitation is minimal for the next week to 10 days and beyond as well. Very little precipitation is looking likely as we continue this high pressure fest that we've had for the past week or so, and we'll continue to see for the coming week as well. So do remember, if you enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So to start on the live radar, you can see another very dry day, hardly any rain at all, apart from a few specks in Scotland again from a very weak weather front that is now drifting through. If we put on the temperatures as of around 5 p.m. as I'm recording this, again a stunning day, especially for parts of northern England, the Midlands, down to southwest England, some dark oranges here, temperatures perhaps topping 23 to maybe 25 degrees in a few isolated spots, so not widespread hot conditions, but locally could be a little bit hot for the end of May. Most areas just warm or very warm. You can see down the east coast, even now we've got slightly cooler conditions. They could spread more inland towards the London area and East Midlands by early next week. So at the moment, still widely warm, but it could cool down that eastern portions as we do head into next week. You can see some very hot air now developing across France under the higher pressure, and some of this air could be wafting our way over the coming week, and that could allow our temperatures to rise even higher. Not looking likely to reach anything remotely close to 30 degrees, but could see more widely low to mid 20s as we do head into the middle of next week, when those upper air temperatures are very warm and we do stay firmly under the higher pressure. So if we do now have a look at the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and temperature over the next 5 days, again we'll whiz through the precipitation because once again, very minimal precipitation. Again, you can see a few specks of rain through this afternoon, but very little. A bit of cloud here and there, perhaps through Sunday afternoon in a few regions, and the same into Monday. You can see the wind veers more into from an easterly direction, perhaps more of a blanket of cloud there, so Monday could be a slightly cloudier day, but still bone dry, and that could be the same into Tuesday. We could still see some cloud down eastern regions and maybe a few specks of rain at times, but still largely dry. And into Wednesday, things get great again as that easterly flow is cut off and we see things start to warm up even in eastern areas once again for the final day of May. Now, if you look at the upper air temperatures, you can see why this happens. It's warm at the moment, and it will continue to be warm over the next couple of days. But you can see that that cold air to our north, it starts to drift down the east coast through Sunday and really establish itself into Monday. Now, at the surface, it cools down quite considerably. Upper airs, it starts to warm up very quickly on Monday, but we still have that cooler air in some layers of the atmosphere. So that's why it takes to probably almost Wednesday time for those upper air temperatures to properly recover. And you can see by Wednesday it is widely much warmer at the upper level, and you can see that at the surface it will reciprocate. If you look at the max temperatures, you can see today widely around the high teens, low 20s, peaking around that 23, 24, maybe 25 degree point. Again, I haven't looked at the official observations yet. We'll probably start to put that in the video soon as we do get into the summertime. But yeah, peak temperatures probably around that 23-24 degree range, but most around 19 to 21. Another very warm day, not oppressively hot, but very warm and very pleasant late spring, early summer day. As we head into tomorrow, it could be quite cold overnight in a few regions. We have clear skies, but as we head into Sunday, you can see once again very warm, especially for southern and western regions. Still high teens, low 20s, topping 23 or 24 degrees. In northern and northeastern areas, things starting to cool down with that colder air mass moving in. And as it establishes itself down the east coast on Monday, you can see that widely sort of 14 to 18 degrees in eastern regions. Further westwards, still high teens, maybe touching 20 or 21, especially across the Republic of Ireland there. So cooler into Monday, but nothing especially cold, just a couple of degrees cooler than what it is now, and there could be a bit of thicker cloud associated with that. Same into Tuesday, starts to rise a bit more in the west, more towards that 21 or 22 degree range. Eastern areas, still 14 to 18 degrees. And as we head into Wednesday, it starts to widely warmer again. Even eastern areas getting up towards 20 degrees, and you can see there widely 20 to 23, topping 24 or 25, and somewhere in southwest England. Wouldn't be surprised to see 25 in a few regions here. And just showing you the heat starting to properly build as that wind does veer more from a southerly direction. We can look at the mean sea level pressure, as that wind is veering in from the near continents, less from a northeasterly direction like it does on Sunday. You can see those ice bars following in from the North Sea. By the end of the week, it's veering more from a southeasterly direction. Very small shift, but because that sea track is so much shorter across parts near of Kent than it is off the coast of East Anglia, that very subtle, almost 20-degree angle change will create huge differences in those field-like temperatures and those surface temperatures as that wind is coming more of the near continents instead of the North Sea originating from the Arctic. Now, if you look at the longer range, see what is in store, you can see the next 5 days very dry and very warm, but will it get warmer? Will it get even hotter, perhaps? Or will we see that cooler outbreak, perhaps, as we head into the first week of June? Now, this is the 6 o'clock GFS run. The midday run is coming out, but it's only got out to day 7 at this stage. There's no real point looking at it. But you can see the high pressure is building in at the moment. You see that easterly wind early next week, but it gets cut off to more of a southeasterly by Wednesday to Thursday. Very warm, but we could see that risk of a northeasterly coming into play. The GFS here does flirt with that idea, but keeps us firmly under high pressure, actually, all the way to the end of the run, where it could break through right at 384 hours. If you look at the upper air temperatures, you can see it is warm, especially as we head into the latter part of next week, around 10 degrees, 850 HPA or higher, widely through Wednesday and Thursday, before degrading a little bit into the weekend as slightly cooler air does move in from that northeasterly direction. So could be slightly cooler there for a day or two, but we are still generally pretty warm, and it could even turn quite a bit hotter there as we head right towards the end of the run with a bit of a southerly flow, as the high pressure does come a bit more distorted, and we see low pressure sat toward the Azores. Now this is a sort of a hot plume pattern. It's not really for anything too sustained, but it could develop a couple of days of much hotter conditions and could bring the risk of thunderstorms with this. You look at the temperature deviation, a good 6 to 8 degrees above average, touching 10 degrees above average for France. Again, if that air mass got to the UK, that 15 to 20 degree air mass, we would be getting towards those 10 or 12 degrees above average. And if we do look at the United Kingdom look at this period, you'll be able to see we are pushing those 20 degree barriers, those mid-20s barriers. Again, nothing ridiculously hot because there probably is some thunderstorms associated with it. If we look at the Cape, you can see quite strong Cape there, and you'd expect, look at the precipitation, to see heavy thunderstorms. So that is the risk. With this southerly flow, we'd see a very warm air mass moving, getting up towards 14 degrees, 850 HPA. You wouldn't be surprised to see 30 degrees with that sort of air mass if we had a warm, dry, sunny day like we do at the moment. But in this sort of pattern, it could turn a bit more thundery. So GFS does largely keep us warm and dry out to day 7. It does flirt with the possibility of some cooler air around that day 7 to day 10 point, but generally still relatively mild, if not warm and dry. And then towards the end of the run, the last few days, turns even hotter perhaps, even more humid, but brings the risk of heavy thundery showers with that. So not too much of a change, and again, we are clutching at straws. Anything really beyond day 7, it is, as we've seen in the last few days, been flip-flopping quite a bit. Only a few days ago, a lot of the runs were showing quite a potent northeasterly flow coming in with some quite cool air. Now really backed off from that for maybe a little bit of a chilly northerly or easterly flow. So we'll just have to see, but this is definitely a risk in the longer term for low pressure to sit down to our southwest, waft up that real big warmth that is building across Europe under this higher pressure. If that did happen, wouldn't be surprised to see some big thundery outbreaks as we head towards the middle of June. If you look at the GEM now, again, the high pressure is completely dominating. Brief easterly flow early next week, and then the high pressure just dominates once again. Into the longer term, there is the risk of some cool air coming around the high pressure, right at day 10 perhaps, but generally we are very warm. The high pressure is moving towards Greenland, so it would open the floodgates to northeasterly flow, but at this stage it's actually dragging up some very warm, if not hot air from the south, and you can see that widespread 6 to 8 degrees above average across much of northern and western Europe, pushing 10 degrees above average across parts of southwest England and parts of northern France. And if we do put on the 2-meter temperatures here, again, you'll be able to see these temperatures are really hotting up. Look at that. At midday, touching 26 to 27 degrees across large swathes of England and Wales and parts of the Republic of Ireland as well. You'd expect by 3 p.m. to be maybe 1 to 3 degrees higher than that. So we would be looking perhaps at as high as 30 degrees. If we actually have a look at the 6 p.m. observations, 6 p.m. predicted temperatures, you can see 28. So around that 3 p.m. point, I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a 30 degrees somewhere isolated with this sort of pattern. So once again, like yesterday, GM is one of the hottest runs. If you look at the air mass, you can see it is very similar to that GFS run we just looked at, with the GFS showing low 20s. That's all because of the pressure. Here we are under higher pressure, firmly under higher pressure, 1022 millibars and above, whereas the GFS was under lower pressure, or lower pressure pushing in with more cape, more instability, more clouds in general, and of course thunderstorms with that. So it just shows you air masses are very important, but we also need something drier and something sunnier this time of year to be getting those very warm and hot days. Sometimes it's better to have 10 degree upper air temperatures and warm sunshine than it is to have 15 degree upper air temperatures and big clouds and thunderstorms, as it would feel quite oppressive and humid, but we wouldn't really be reaching anything too nice in terms of temperatures. So again, we do need to keep an eye on these sort of patterns. You can see the upper air temperatures don't always tell the full picture, but both runs regardless are going fairly warm, and especially in the GM, still fairly dry. GFS bringing a few thunderstorms in. If you look at the ECMWF, see where that sort of does sit within the model output. Again, high pressure continues to dominate. As we headed to around day 7, we could start to pull in that northeasterly flow, but right towards day 10, we are generally still under high pressure. That cool air is slowly drifting its way in down the North Sea, but we're generally still fairly mild. At day 10, we are starting to cool down a bit, I must say that. We are starting to cool down, but still high teens, touching 20 degrees perhaps. So not cold, nothing hot, but similar to what we have now, maybe slightly cooler than what we have now. So nothing too bad, just a continuation. So if we do look at the accumulated precipitation for this run, you'll be able to see very minimal precipitation. So another very stunning ECMWF run here, not going insanely hot at all, but just keeping us warm and dry, keeping what we do have at the moment. If you do finish by looking at the ensembles, you can see for the next week or so to around the 4th of June, we are very warm and dry, above average for the foreseeable future, and very minimal precipitation throughout the last few days of May and start of June for the London area and for most of the British Isles. As we get around the 5th or 6th of June, you can see the upper air temperatures do trend to around average and stay pretty much average to around the 12th. And there are a lot of ensemble members either side. So there's got some very warm runs or hot runs like the GFS was showing. We've also got some cooler runs like the control run is showing, or some of the other ensemble members bringing more of that northeasterly flow in. So we do have a bit of a split in what the ensemble members are showing, but we will just have to decipher it near the time. At that sort of 10 to day 14 point, we are seeing a lot of variations, and that is normal, but especially when we've got real long streak of very warm air at the moment. We are very interested to see where this could go in the longer term. Building all this warmth and heat over the near continent could set us up for a very warm or hot June if this pattern continued, but equally we could see a lot of thunderstorms as we saw the GFS if the low pressure runs into that. You can see precipitation is still fairly minimal but does pick up in the longer term, but again that is mostly down to more low pressure outliers. If you do look at the sea level pressure, again high pressure dominating to around the 5th or 6th of June, and then trending more towards lower pressure, but still in the high pressure area, which is sort of 1,015 millibars and above. 2 meter temperatures generally around that 20-degree point for the foreseeable future. Again, a few degrees either side, some of the warmest ones getting into the mid to high 20s in the long term, like the GFS operational run was showing. And once again, these spikes are at midday and 6 p.m. So we do have a 3 p.m. on these ensemble charts, which always does mean they're a few degrees cooler than the peak in reality. And if we finish by looking at the ECMWF, very similar, very warm in the next 7 days and dipping more towards average, but probably more of the ensemble members of that average or above average point. Some real cool runs there appearing around the 6th to 8th of June, a good 5 to 10 degrees below average, but very few are going for that. The majority are keeping us still fairly dry, and considering there's 50 ensemble members, there is very minimal precipitation as well in the longer term. Even though it does pick up a little bit, it is still looking very dry and very warm. And lastly, just compare those 2 meter temperatures to the GFS, and once again, all hovering around the high teens into the low 20s. And you see it is inaccurate to a certain extent today for London. It's showing sort of 17-18 degrees at midday and 17-18 degrees at 6 p.m. And by 3 p.m. we're seeing widely 20 to 22. So just shows you that the ensembles on the temperatures not only do underdo it a little bit because they are low resolution, but also underdo it simply because they take measurements at midday and 6 p.m, not at 3 p.m, where we do reach the peak temperature of the day. So we always add a few degrees to this at least. So warmer than this is showing most likely around that 20 degree or higher point over the next couple of weeks. So once again, headline is it's looking pretty stunning over the next few weeks. No heat wave is on the cards. There is the potential for it to warm up further as we head into June. Perhaps temperatures getting as high as 25 degrees widely or even peaking at 30 degrees. But we're not looking at that in the next 7 days. The next 7 days, we'd be surprised if we saw anything much above 25, but I would be very surprised if we didn't see many areas getting to that 20 to 25 degree point quite often over the next 7 days. Apart from perhaps the east and the northeast, northeast on Sunday and the east on Monday and Tuesday. So yeah, looking stunning. Make sure you go out and enjoy it. I hope you have a great bank holiday weekend. Today has been a stunning day. Tomorrow will be another stunning day, if not a little bit cooler, and Monday will again be a nice day. Not quite as great as probably today or Sunday, or as we head into next week as well, but still a great day compared to what we have seen this time of year before. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.